Welcome to my second video essay of today. The power of sound and silence. Do people need sound in media? A student video essay. This is for my theories of film class. Welcome. Hello. So, the main questions that we're going to be trying to answer in this video are specifically, do films require sound? Does the audience require sound? And what is the power of sound and silence? All of these questions will be in relation to Darius Marder's The Sound of Metal, 2019. This is Letterboxd's synopsis of the film. Music was his world, then silence revealed a new one. Metal drummer Ruben begins to lose his hearing. When a doctor tells him his condition will worsen, he thinks his career and life are over. His girlfriend Lou checks the formal addict into a rehab for the deaf, hoping it will prevent a relapse and help him adapt to his new life. After being welcomed and accepted for who he is, Ruben must choose between a new normal and the life he once knew. It's great. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Let's get into our first question. Does film require sound? If you're a film nerd, like me, technically no. You can still portray a story without the necessity of sound. Hence, film was created in 1888. But sync sound, which is the ability to record sound and film at the same time, and then have it appear as though they are unanimous, didn't exist until 1930, so there's almost 30 years of film before sound was ever included. So technically, no. However, it's my personal opinion that movies benefit from the use of sound. This is why we're going to be talking about the movie The Sound of Metal, 2019, Darius Marder. I hope I'm saying his name right. I personally don't think that this movie could have been created without the use of sound. I mean, it could be if you sat and were incapable or hearing impaired and could not listen to the movie in any way, shape, or form and just read it with the subtitles. You still get the story. However, I don't think you would get as much of an emotional impact or impact period because you're literally listening to a guy lose his hearing. The importance of sound can be highlighted through Michael Chian's voice in the cinema, specifically this quote where he says, "For indeed all films proceed in the form of an indifferent and automatic unwielding, that of the projection, which on the screen and through the loudspeakers produces a simulacra of music and life, and this unwinding must hide itself and be forgotten." Showing how film and sound have this symbiotic relationship where sound, even though you may not realize that it's there, sound and Foley, it highly encourages the way that the audience viewer watches and understands the film that they're watching. Like in Star Wars, if it didn't have the amazing, incredible symphony behind this galactic epic, the film would just be a bunch of actors on sets hitting plastic things together. The assumed power of the universe of Star Wars can only exist because of the score behind it. A fantastic score. It's the same with Harry Potter. The magic of Harry Potter wouldn't be the same without the very notable and famous score behind it that adds to this magic of this fictional world. And this is highly used in all sorts of film and is one of the reasons why I think film benefits from sound. It's not necessary, but it absolutely benefits and builds and encourages this world that is ultimately fictitious and reproduced by actors on a stage and a camera. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to focus this whole project on sound, and I think it's amazing. Which goes into the question of, does the audience require sound? And I would say, yes. Contemporary media consumers require sound. Generation Z has some of the lowest attention span I've ever seen in my entire life, thanks social media. Wasn't always the case because people needed things to do, so they would make films ridiculously long and put intermissions in them, but that's not the case anymore. We are surrounded by social media and fast form media, so we need sound. Also, a lot of people put on films in the background to go and do other things, so they solely listen to films to watch them because of whatever reasoning that they have behind it. I'm personally not one of those people, but people do it. I know people who do it. Does the audience require sound? Contemporary audience? Absolutely. That kind of goes into our last question of what is the power of sound and silence? Regardless of if you think a film needs it, sound and score drives the emotional undertone. It's almost the unseen guide of films. Emphasize or put emphasis on a specific moment in time in the story or the use of loss of the sound. Specifically, in the terms of The Sound of Metal, there is the very beginning of the movie, which is quite loud and quite just overstimulating, versus the very end of the movie, which is silent. Pure silent. And it's funny because for me, I was also a musician at a period of time. My ears ring when it's quiet. So even in those moments of the film, I don't experience the full silence because my ears are ringing. And I think it's quite funny, and I relate with this movie a lot because I've always felt the fear as a musician or someone who simply loves music. The fear of losing my hearing is absolutely terrifying, and I think this film does an incredible job at embodying the fear and the experience of entirely losing your hearing and the acceptance of losing your hearing and becoming a deaf person. I like when the film will jump back and forth between what Ruben, the main character, is hearing himself versus what is actually happening, and the audio of the space around him versus the audio that he hears. This becomes really relevant at the very end. Once he has colloquial implant where he hears this mechanic version of the world around him and then takes him off, and it's just pure silence. It's beautiful. It shows not only the acceptance he now has for his now silent world, but also how the impact of hearing totally affects mood and everything around you. You see in the film, it's one of the only moments where he actually just sits, not even listens, but takes in the world because he can't listen. He just sits and takes the world around him despite everything he's been fighting for the entire film. And I think that's quite awesome. I hope you enjoyed my project. I know I didn't propose anything revolutionary, but so I hope everyone enjoyed watching this my little video about sound and The Sound of Metal. Thank you all for watching, and I will probably not see you again. Bye-bye.